This is the Mode80 from Mode Keyboards. It is an 80% TKL or 10 keyless. It is made with an aluminum housing and is what Mode calls it, a stack mount. The one thing they are very proud of when it comes to the Mode80 is that it is put together using 3 screws. At the time I saw this, I was impressed by it, and I was like, wow, that's like 5 less screws than some other boards. The board has a front height of 18.5 millimeters and has a typing angle of 5.5 degrees. You have the option for wing key or wing keyless, plate options of alu, FR4, and polycarbonate, and can be purchased with either a solderable or hot swap PCB. The board came in 6 different colors: deep, navy top, silver bottom, viridian, green top, gray bottom, imperial, full red, deco, gray top, gold bottom, celestial, white top, gold bottom, and monochrome, white top, black bottom. I went with the imperial purely because that red they had was so nice, and went with a solderable PCB and only aluminum plate. In the box, you're introduced to the keyboard, box, and materials in separate packaging. You get a sticker, and in one bag you get the PCB, another you get case feet, daughter board, hex screws, and the plate. And in another bag you get the PCB foam, and the final bag you get the case foam. And in the box you get the main star of the show, the case. The box the case comes in is very nice. I remember when I opened this for the first time, it was just such a nice unboxing experience, the magnetic box. And in the case itself, you have the board. When I filmed this unboxing, I would say the lighting that I set up wasn't the best, but still a beautiful color. The build process was pretty simple, I would say. One thing I will say is that I didn't realize how hard it was going to be to put the switches into the plate and PCB, because the get-around prongs were so big that putting them in the plate and PCB was extremely difficult for my scrawny arms. And I honestly gave up while streaming this the first day, and went in the second day a little more refreshed and using some rested up arm muscle. But in the end, I got it done and had all the switches seated into the plate properly and soldered the switches in. Closing up the board was a bit confusing since it was my first time building a quote-unquote gasket mounted board, and at the time I was getting overwhelmed by the thought that I might screw up. I would say there were a lot of things that I would have done differently with the build process, but it's all a learning process. And here it is, fully built. I would say after nearly 8 months of using the board, I really like it. Of course, there were some changes I made to the build itself. I removed the PCB foam that I had in the board with the first build and took it out because it dampened the sound too much, and changed the keycaps from DCS to GMK. But I think this is a nice board with the get-around reds as well. I also changed it from GMK to PBT because I put the GMK on something else. Here's the sound test with PBT keycaps from Swag Keys, get-around reds, spring swap with 67, loop with 205, and only case foam. Now my takeaways and thoughts on the board itself. As much as I like the board, there are its flaws. One thing I would like to talk about is the mounting method. Mode's stack mount was initially thought by many as a gasket mount, and it actually isn't. Yeah, it uses pour-on gaskets between the plate and case, but there aren't any flex mounts on the plate that would necessarily give the board that signature gasket flex and bouncy feel. I would say the stack mount is more of a hybrid or different version of the gasket mount method, being that it is being held together by quote-unquote stacking and compressing the pour-on gaskets without screws, but doesn't have those flaps on the edge of the plate that the gasket sits on. The typing feel of the board isn't bouncy either, like a gasket mount would be. It has a more stiff feel to it. If you look hard enough, there is a very tiny amount of flex coming from the pour-on gaskets compressing, but other than that, I would say it is a fairly stiff board. But in the end, I still do like this board. This board was one of the first group buy boards that I purchased and received first that was in its price range. And maybe it's just me trying to justify my purchases, but I really do like the feel of the get around reds in the board and the minimal design. That really nice red anodization. With this video now coming out in late October, recently Mode and also announced the R2 of the Mode80 as well. In the round 2 of the Mode80, they now have the given option of either stack mounting and or isolate top mounting on the same plate. New plate options: palm, FR4, alu, brass, black mirrored, copper, and carbon fiber. And that applies to certain plates. And new color options for the top: gray, black, navy, lavender, green, white, and the bottom gray, black, white, and gold. So they removed the option for a polycarbonate plate, removed the case color red, and added the option of customizing both top and bottom cases and using a full or half plate. So it comes down to the question of, would I recommend this board to you, the viewer? And I say yes, but no. Firstly, the price. I purchased mine in their first group buy back in Q4 of 2020, and I didn't buy any extras and went with the standard board, and it cost me around $520. Now for many, this is an extremely steep price for a board, and I would agree. If I were to be making this purchase now with the experience that I have in this hobby and all that, I would not have made this purchase. So to those that are looking into purchasing a board for the first time, I would say no, don't buy this board, because you can get better feeling boards for a cheaper price. If you're looking into buying a board that looks nice and has that minimal design that, in my opinion, Mode did an extremely good job at, this is a board that I can recommend. There are other boards out there that have a similar design principle and cost less, but for what Mode did here, with the anodization being one of the nicer jobs that I've seen, the simplification to the build process, I could see some people looking at this board and justifying the price for it. Secondly, the feel. Now this is purely subjective, and not everyone will think the same way as I do on this point. The feel of this board is stiff. The stack mount isn't crazy to me. The use of the pour-on gaskets, in my opinion, doesn't do much to give the board a more softer or bouncier feel. And the board feels okay. Some people out there enjoy a bouncier feel to their board, and others enjoy a more stiff feeling board, which is why there are different mounting options and different plate materials. But for me, I enjoy a bouncier feel to my boards and would only want a more stiffer feeling board if I were to be using a tactile switch. But over time, I have started liking linear switches more and more, and don't see a need for a stiff board since I don't find as much enjoyment in typing in tactiles as much. I still type on tactiles, just I prefer linears. So in conclusion, the Mode80 is a minimalistic TKL that comes in beautiful colors and is a perfect choice for someone who is looking for a keyboard that has a sleek design and simple build process. So thank you for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.